Hi everyone, my name is Shauna in case you don't know, and welcome back to another video. Tales of the Walking Dead wrapped up this past Sunday and I thought I'd rank all the episodes because I have some very strong thoughts on them. Tales of the Walking Dead is a series that is obviously a spin-off of The Walking Dead, and it just has 6 unique episodes with their own storylines and their own characters. Only one of these episodes directly ties into The Walking Dead. I have some very strong thoughts on this show. I think that as a whole, it is a very overrated show, but I actually have seen a ton of people who dislike the show online, and I agree with this. There's only one episode of the show that I actually thought was worth watching, that I actually found entertaining. The rest of the show I was watching more because once I start a show, I don't like to stop watching the show. I like to finish the show even if it's terrible. So that's why I finished watching this. I really hope that this show doesn't get a second season, but I don't know if it will or not. So without further ado, let's get on into my ranking. I won't give any spoilers except for stuff that has been shown in trailers. The episode that is number 1 on my ranking, that is the only episode that I'd actually watch recommending. You can actually just watch this episode like without watching the other episodes. It doesn't tie into the other ones at all. That is Amy and Dr. Everett. Amy and Dr. Everett are 2 different characters that the story focuses on. They both have very different perspectives on zombies and how they should deal with zombies. We have sort of a scientific approach to it, studying them, observing them, viewing them as their own independent species, and that is just how the world is gonna work. That's just how nature is working. The other person, Amy, is the typical person that you think of when you think of The Walking Dead, wanting to take back the land, kill the zombies, because she knows that the zombies are dead, that there's no saving them. But Dr. Everett views it as nature. So it's interesting because this is a perspective on zombies that we haven't seen before. Dr. Everett's perspective is something that we haven't seen before in the Walking Dead universe very much. So I thought that that was interesting, and I thought it was sort of thought-provoking because it's a new perspective that actually has some sense to it, even though obviously we should like prioritize saving humans if there's ever a zombie apocalypse, but it is very interesting how he came to that belief and what he's doing with his actions because of that belief. This episode had the saddest death out of all of the Tales of the Walking Dead episodes. It almost made me cry, but luckily I didn't. But yeah, I thought Amy and Dr. Everett was a very worthwhile one to watch. As I said, you can just watch it without watching any of the other ones. And honestly, if I could go back and do this differently, and if I could like stop my brain from being like, you have to finish every show that you start, I would have just watched Amy and Dr. Everett. My next one on this list is one that most people hate, and I understand why. Okay, I dislike it. Okay, I dislike all the other 5 episodes of this show. However, this one would rank number 2nd if I am to rank it. And this one is Blair Gina. Blair Gina is a, what's it called? Like Groundhog's Day type situation set in the Walking Dead universe. I found it to be somewhat entertaining, but it's not very deep. It has actually fairly good acting, especially considering the fact that like the script didn't feel like it was written the best, and I felt like the ending of the episode sort of like ruined the vibe of the whole episode for me. And I also thought that like this time loop Groundhog's Day thing just doesn't make sense in the context of the Walking Dead universe. I just found that this series was a little bit challenging because they tried to do creative things and new takes on zombies, but because they're technically taking place in the Walking Dead universe, when you do something like a time loop, it sort of is something that doesn't make sense in the prescribed rules of the world that we have from the Walking Dead series. So that was my issue with Blair and Gina. It just didn't make sense to have a time loop given the fact this Walking Dead. If these were separate zombie stories that didn't take place in the Walking Dead universe, it would have made sense, but no, it doesn't make sense because it takes place in the Walking Dead universe. The third one on my ranking is the one that is most people's favorite, and I understand why it's most people's favorite, and that is D. So D is giving a backstory to Alpha, who was one of the major villains from The Walking Dead. I thought that this episode actually had incredible acting. I think that the actress who plays Alpha / D has always been an incredible actress. I've seen some other movies that she's been in. She is always super awesome. My issue with D is that there is sort of a plot hole / plot inconsistency in terms of The Walking Dead to the Tales of the Walking Dead. I've seen some people try and justify the plot hole, the plot inconsistency, say it makes sense. It doesn't make sense given the information that we were giving in the original Walking Dead series. That's all I'm gonna say, okay? Because I'm not gonna spoil it, but I'm just gonna say, like, it felt like there needed to be someone being like, hey, this doesn't make sense in context of The Walking Dead. The fourth one on my ranking is one that I absolutely hated, and that's LaDanya. This one is the scariest one of the series. It has sort of a haunted house vibe, which I actually found sort of interesting to have a haunted house vibe, and it was hard because I sort of get the sense that they were going a little insane in this episode, the characters, but I was also like, if they aren't going insane, then it doesn't fit in with the prescribed rules of the universe. But I just sort of like tried to imagine as just they're going insane. That's how I tried to justify what's going on in it. I thought there was lots of good jump scares in there, but the ending didn't entirely make sense, and the acting was pretty crappy if I'm being honest. And number 5 on this is Devon, I don't even remember. I hated this episode so much that I don't even remember how to pronounce the main guy's name. Okay. My issue with this episode is that it is disturbing and messed up, and that it doesn't even have anything to do with the zombies. It has more to do with like an amnesia plotline with like Salem witch trial vibes, which like serial killer vibes. It doesn't have anything to do with zombies. I feel like there's nothing unique about the story to set it in the Walking Dead universe. This is a story that should have and could have been set like in a like different universe. Like maybe this could be a movie about like a cult. It shouldn't have been set in this Tales of the Walking Dead series, because that just, to me, I feel like people are watching this series because they like zombies. So to have an episode that barely has anything to do with zombies, that doesn't really like fit in with the rest of the episodes, fit in with the universe, just really frustrated me. I also found that the amnesia plotline made the story confusing for 90% of the episode. It only started to make sense at the very end. And by that point, I just didn't care about the reveals because I was so frustrated with the fact that this like had nothing to do with zombies. I was so frustrated with how like disturbing and confusing it was that I really did not care at all about the reveals at the end. I really don't recommend watching this episode. However, the main like actor, I've recognized him from other stuff, so I did actually recognize him. I just didn't like the episode as a whole. I mean, there's pretty good acting in there. I just didn't like the episode, okay? Did not like it at all. And now my least favorite one, which is the first one in the series, which I was surprised to find that some people actually liked it. This one is Evie Joe. Okay, first of all, there is an animal death in here that happens very early on that really made me sad, that felt very unnecessary. Okay, I feel like there's another way to set Joe on his journey than to kill this particular animal. And I hate deaths of this animal on shows, and I hate it when deaths of animals happen for basically no reason. There is terrible writing in this episode, and there's terrible acting. I would say the writing is a little worse than the acting, but the acting was terrible. The reason why the acting is so terrible is because the guy who plays Joe. Let me look up his name. The reason why I'm looking up his name is because he is a famous person. So Terry Crews plays Joe. Terry Crews is a guy who didn't start out being an actor, and then he decided to get into acting, and it didn't work out for him. He is a terrible actor, and I'm so sorry. Like, I'm sure he's a great guy, but he's just a terrible actor, and I was very disappointed that he joined the Walking Dead universe, considering he can't act for crap. I would rather literally have anyone else play Joe than Terry Crews. No hate to Terry Crews, just not everyone is meant to be an actor. Not everyone is good at being an actor. If they could be a good person, just not a good actor. So that is why Evie and Joe is last on my list. Evie and Joe is also very much like a road trip story, so it's very much just like a bunch of traveling instead of like an action-packed story or like a deep story. It was very much just traveling for the majority of the episode. So that's my ranking of all the Tales of the Walking Dead episodes. I hear crying right now, which means my nephew's awake. Don't worry, don't worry. My mom is in there with my nephew, but I feel like I should just wrap this up now and go help out with my nephew. He's a great kid, you know, just a little hard to wake up from naps, you know? I hope all of you enjoyed this video. If you did, feel free to give it a thumbs up and subscribe to me if you haven't already. I upload videos twice a week, so my next video will be uploaded next Tuesday, and that will be a book-related video. I hope all of you stick around to watch that video, and until next time, goodbye!